Tonight, when the world goes quiet, you will reach for something. Your phone, a playlist, a podcast playing in the background while you pretend to sleep. The silence will last maybe 4 seconds before you feel it. You've been doing it so long, you don't even notice anymore. You reach before the quiet even lands. For 300,000 years, that option didn't exist. No earbud, no hum of distant traffic, no algorithm feeding you the next thing before you've finished the last. Ancient humans sat in the dark with nothing but fire and each other, and the silence stretched out in every direction like open water. The question nobody asks is what they did with it. Because the answer doesn't just tell you about them, it tells you something uncomfortable about what silence is doing to you right now. If you're enjoying this so far, hit the like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I actually read them. The assumption most people carry is that silence was a problem ancient humans endured. Empty hours, boredom, the dull weight of waiting for morning. Popular history paints prehistory as survival, nothing more. Hunt, sleep, repeat. The silence between those moments gets treated as a blank, as if nothing happened in the space between fire and dawn. In 1992, anthropologist Robin Dunbar at the University of Liverpool published research that would quietly dismantle that picture. Dunbar was studying social group sizes across primate species, measuring brain size against group complexity. What he found was that humans, relative to every other primate on the planet, had evolved brains disproportionately large for one specific purpose: not tool use, not hunting strategy, social processing. The human brain was built, more than anything else, to manage other people. Dunbar calculated that the optimal human social group hovered around 150 individuals, a number now called Dunbar's number. Within those groups, roughly 20% of waking hours in observed hunter-gatherer societies was spent in what he called social grooming. Not physical grooming, but the vocal equivalent. Talking, laughing, telling stories, singing. The silence wasn't being endured, it was being filled, constantly, with each other. That's where the picture shifts. Because the tools of ancient noise weren't passive. They weren't consumption. They were performance and participation, and they required something modern silence filling specifically doesn't. In 2001, archaeologist Francesco De Rico at the University of Bordeaux published findings on a set of bone flutes recovered from sites across Europe and the Levant. The oldest of them, carved from vulture bone at Hohlefels Cave in Germany, dated to approximately 43,000 years ago. Someone sat down, spent hours carving 5 aligned holes into hollow bone, and produced a musical instrument. Not a weapon, not a tool for hunting, something made entirely to organize silence into sound. When researchers reconstructed the flute and played it, the notes it produced were not random. They were scaled, structured. Whoever carved that bone understood intervals. They understood that sound could be shaped into something repeatable, something other people could listen to and feel together. That's the detail that changes everything. Ancient humans weren't just filling silence. They were filling it with things that required other people to receive them. The sound only became music when someone else heard it and felt it land. The distinction matters more than it seems. If this is making you think, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss one. This channel only exists because of the people who share these videos, and I don't take that lightly. In 2017, a study published in the journal Current Biology tracked music making and communal storytelling across 72 hunter-gatherer societies, still living in ways that parallel prehistoric patterns. Led by researcher Jerome Lewis at University College London, the study found that storytelling and group singing were the dominant nighttime activities across nearly every culture in the sample. In the Bayeka groups of the Congo, researchers documented song sessions that lasted 4 to 6 hours, often beginning after the fire was stoked and running until sleep took people one by one. The stories told in these sessions were not entertainment in any modern sense. They carried cosmological explanations, social rules, memory of migrations, and instructions carefully disguised as narrative. Jerome Lewis described them as a technology for transmitting everything the group needed to survive across generations without a single written word. The silence was the classroom, and the voices filling it were the textbooks. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA spent years studying what the human brain does when it isn't focused on a task. In 2013, he published research showing that the brain's default state, its resting mode, is social processing. When you stop concentrating on something external, your brain doesn't go quiet. It automatically begins processing social relationships, replaying conversations, imagining other people's perspectives, working through unresolved interactions. Your brain treats silence as an invitation to think about other people. It has been doing this for 300,000 years. It was built for exactly this. The campfire conversations were not separate from cognitive life. They were cognitive life. They were the operating system running underneath everything else, which makes what you reach for in the quiet worth examining. Because a podcast is not a campfire. A playlist doesn't respond to you. The scroll is one-directional in ways the Firelight never was. Ancient humans filled silence with things that required other humans to receive them. The song needed listeners. The story needed reactions. The telling was incomplete without the room. When you fill silence alone with content made for no one in the room, something the brain was built to generate stays dormant. Not broken, not gone, just waiting for the call that doesn't come. The quiet isn't a problem that arrived with modernity. The quiet is ancient, and for almost every human who ever lived, it was communal. What changed is what we hand it. For 300,000 years, silence was filled with things that moved between people, things that required two or more minds to complete. The bone flute needed someone to hear it. The story needed someone to carry it forward. Even the brain's default resting state, as Lieberman's work shows, wants to reach toward other minds. That reaching is still happening. Every time the room goes quiet, your brain begins its 300,000-year-old routine. The same one that kept small groups of humans alive, connected, and coherent through every dark and silent night the species has ever crossed. The next time silence comes, before you reach for the earbud, sit with the fact that your brain knows exactly what to do with it. It always has. There is one more layer here that researchers almost never bring into this conversation, and it reframes everything that came before it. What ancient humans were doing around those fires was not simply filling time. They were doing something that modern neuroscience now confirms is one of the most cognitively demanding things a human brain can do. They were co-regulating each other's nervous systems through sound. In 2010, Yuri Hassan at Princeton University ran a series of studies using fMRI scanners to measure what happens inside two brains when one person tells a story and another listens. What he found had no precedent in the literature. The listener's brain didn't just process the words. It began to mirror the speaker's neural activity. Regions that fired in the storyteller's brain fired in the listener's brain moments later, with a delay measured in milliseconds. Hassan called it neural coupling. Two brains, temporarily synchronized by nothing but voice and attention. The ancient campfire was not a passive experience. Every person sitting in that circle was, in the most literal neurological sense, being changed by every other person in it. The story moving between them was moving through their neurons simultaneously. They were, for the duration of the telling, one distributed cognitive system. And then, modernity removed the fire. Removed the circle, replaced the story with a feed. It happened gradually enough that no generation noticed the trade clearly. Each step felt like an upgrade. The radio brought voices into the home. Television brought faces. The internet brought infinite choice. Each transition felt like more. What it was, neurologically, was less. The content you consume alone does not couple your brain with another person's. Hassan's follow-up research confirmed that pre-recorded content produced dramatically weaker coupling than live, responsive exchange. The brain knows the difference. Something about the responsiveness, the fact that the other person can feel you listening, activates the coupling that recorded content cannot. This is not nostalgia for a simpler time. The data is specific. Your brain has a mechanism for connecting to other minds through shared sound and story that predates language, that predates agriculture, that may predate Homo sapiens entirely. That mechanism doesn't switch off because you live in a city. It waits. Every quiet room is an activation cue your ancient brain has been responding to since before it was fully human. The silence isn't empty. It never was. It was always an invitation. What you bring to it is the only question that has ever mattered. Thank you for watching until the end. If this changed how you see something, check out the videos on screen. I think they will hit the same way. And subscribe if you haven't. See you in the next one.